Thanks for joining us, and welcome back to the Watchman on the Wall podcast. Periodically, we'll bring you true stories of angelic encounters, heavenly visitations, near-death experiences, as well as modern-day prophecies that are relevant to us today. When we come back, we'll begin our next episode. Hello again, and welcome back. Today is our three-part election prophecy special. In part one of our special podcast, we will hear from Robin Bullock and what he has heard from God about who will win the presidency on November 3rd. Then, in part two, we will have a prophetic word from R. Loren Sanford about what he was shown about the results of the 2020 presidential election. And then finally, we will end with the latest dream from Dana Coverstone. So now here is Prophet Robin Bullock being interviewed by Sid Roth about what will happen in the upcoming election.
Hello, Sid Roth here with Robin Bullock. And they're both prophets, and I think there's a real prophetic thing in both of them having the same first name and being married to each other. But for those that aren't familiar with you, I'll call you Lady Robin. I'll call you Robin.
All right.
And Robin, I have seen you minister on YouTube, not in person. And in fact, it's your whole family. I didn't realize it at the time I saw. Yes. You're musicians, and
yes.
You prophesy. And the first time I saw you guys, I said, "Wow, they must have known Kim Clement, and he must have laid hands on him," because I think that's the same as Kim Clement. And I'm sure others have seen that comparison between the two of you. But for those that aren't familiar with you, Robin, give me one prophetic word. In fact, there are many, but people have to know your credentials. So your credentials as a prophet is prophesy that things that come to pass.
Yes.
Now, you were one of the first, I believe, to prophesy about the coronavirus. Tell me about that.
Yes, in 2016, I heard this word from the Lord that there was coming a harvest of sickness in the earth, and it would make the nations tremble. And it went on in more detail. But then on April the 30th, 2019, I was standing on the stage at the 11th Hour program, and I turned around and I said, "There's a terrible plague coming. It's a sickness. It's going to be an international thing. And it's going to be," I just kept on. I said, "It's a pestilence. I'm searching for a name." And Robin said, "An epidemic?" I said, "Yes, an epidemic maybe." I couldn't think of the word pandemic, but I knew it was coming, and I told it there twice, 2016, 2019. And then sure enough, the following January is when it hit the news. And so that was out that far ahead of time.
Well, out of curiosity, has God shown you anything about this pandemic as to how much longer it'll last, or whether there'll be most people believe there'll be a vaccine very soon. Has he shown you anything else about it for the future?
Yes, this is what he told me. He said, you're going to approach an Elijah moment and a Red Sea moment. There's going to be a moment in time that we're going to approach very soon. And he said at this time that there's going to be a rapid resurgence of everything all at once, riots, virus, everything. And then it will be swallowed up after that moment. It's like a Red Sea moment when people can't figure which way they're going to move, and it will be swallowed up in the Red Sea the same way. And I don't see it going much longer at all. The Lord has shown me a lot of things, and the way it came is the way it will go. And there's about to be a lot of revelations uncovered about this whole thing.
Well, speaking of prophecy, the one thing that everyone at this moment wants to know is, because if you're a Bible believer, you have to not want Biden to be president unless you're for abortion, murdering of children in the womb and out of the womb now.
Yes.
And the whole litany of the most perverse sins in the Bible. Who is going to win? Has God shown you, Robin?
Well, I was in a meeting down in Florida, and I was listening to the Lord before this meeting, and this wasn't even on my mind, but this is the way it happens at times. And I turned around and the news was on, and I saw Joe Biden on the screen. And you remember this, I told you this. I said, I looked around, and just out of conversation, I said, Lord, Joe Biden don't need to be president. And just like this, just like if you'd answered me, he said, he won't. Just like that. He said, he won't. And then he said this. He said, and after the election, now this is going to sound strange, but he said the Democratic Party will go underground. And I don't think that, I don't know exactly what that means, but he said they would go underground like the throne of Pergamon, the throne of Satan that disappeared and showed back up in Berlin. And he said they'll go underground and then reemerge at a later time under another thing and another banner maybe.
Well, I understand that because of other prophets, and I kind of piece things together. Other prophets have said that the Democratic Party will just kind of like disappear. But what you're adding to that is they're not going to disappear. They're going to do their strategizing as if they've disappeared.
That's exactly right.
And
then I heard,
go ahead.
Well, I heard that they're going to arise again. And this was a very specific prophecy. The Lord said they would rise again and come to power under the Antichrist. And think about that. And I wasn't asking for that. He just told me this. And so that means that in a future time, sometime they'll be called something else, but it'll be the same ideas, same party, everything. And I want to tell you this, there's the three major sins right now, I believe, is what's being dealt with. Abortion, same-sex marriage, destroying the families, and persecution of Israel. And these three things are what we're dealing with right now. All prophetic events are pointing to these things, and we must wake up.
Now, you saw something about Vice President Biden's son, Hunter Biden.
I did.
What did you say?
Well, I was, the Lord told me, he said 21 days from the election, he said there'll be something will come out. And he was specific to say it would come out. Something would, like it was going to be, come to the forefront. And 21 days from the election, Hunter Biden's laptop was uncovered and brought to the forefront. 21 days. And so when it was brought to the forefront, I had given a word that it would be I kept hearing Red October, Red October. And the old slogan for that movie years ago, it said, the hunt is on, or something. And then someone else posted a thing that said, the hunter now has become the hunted. And when I gave the word Red October, then look what happened. The laptop came forward and it belonged to Hunter Biden. And so the hunter now has become the hunted, exactly the way it was said.
Are you interested in scary places? Well, I found a great podcast called Your Haunted Holiday. Each week, sisters Lisa and Lindsay will take you to some of the most haunted places in the world. Their incredible research into how these places became haunted is complemented by their insight into the ghostly activities that are present. They give you information on ghost tours, prices, and much more. That's Your Haunted Holiday. You can go to yourhauntedholiday.com or just listen to wherever great podcasts are found. And now, in part 2 of our podcast, we'll hear from R. Loren Sanford and what he was shown about Joe Biden and the results of the 2020 presidential election.
Hello, folks. It's October 22nd, Thursday. I'm back from a ministry trip, and this is the Daily Word in the Crisis. Up until now, I've held back from issuing any prophetic words about the outcome of the election. I've said what I suspect, but I've not said it prophetically. What brings me to the point at which I'm finally willing to speak prophetically is that's what brings me to that point at which I'm finally willing to speak prophetically. And if I turn out to be wrong, I will openly say so, and I will ask forgiveness of the body of Christ. So here's where it begins. In a prayer meeting with our church last week, I saw in a vision Joe Biden melting away like a digital image, disintegrating as the pixels fell apart. I saw him fading into obscurity. And the Lord followed with a passage of Scripture, Psalm 47, starting at verse 1. "Oh, clap your hands, all peoples. Shout to God with the voice of joy, for the Lord Most High is to be feared, a great King over all the earth. He subdues people under us. He subdues peoples under us, and nations under our feet. He chooses our inheritance for us, the glory of Jacob whom he loves." I found myself crying out for justice for those attacked by Antifa and other violent groups, and those who are suffering losses of life and property because of the deliberately set fires across the West, where there have been no arrests made. These are man-caused fires set by those who hate, who want to bring our country down. We have fires burning in my own state right now, where we have seen no lightning storms or any other natural causes. The same has been true of the coastal states of the West. In my own region, cities are now being evacuated, threatened. I cried out for justice in that prayer meeting for the 20 or so Trump supporters who were attacked by a mob of hundreds of Antifa. One man of that group of supporters suffered teeth knocked out in the attack. What a travesty that there were no arrests. I pray for justice for businesses burned by rioters on the left, and how few arrests have been made. And even when arrested, so many of them have just been released. The people doing these things are the Nazi brown shirts of our day, who will tolerate no one who doesn't agree with the party line. And then I had Psalm 11, beginning at verse 1. "In the Lord I take refuge. How can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? For behold, the wicked bend the bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string, to shoot in darkness at the upright in heart." My comment is witness the ugliness, directed at Amy Coney Barrett in her SCOTUS confirmation hearings. Verse 3, "If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Well, the foundations of the nation are under assault, and if we allow them to be destroyed, we are done as a nation." Verse 4, "The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men." Verse 5, "The Lord tests the righteous and the wicked, and the one who loves violence his soul hates." Verse 6, "Upon the wicked he will rain snares, Fire and brimstone and burning wind will be the portion of their cup. Verse 7, for the Lord is righteous. He loves righteousness. The upright will behold his face. So I believe the president will be re-elected, and he will be re-elected by a wider margin than has been predicted or expected. In the ensuing months, a number of things, both good and bad, will unfold. First, the Democrats and the radical left will insist that Donald Trump stole the election, no matter what the margin of victory turns out to be. And then next, back in early December in a prayer meeting at our church when the economy was booming and there was yet no hint of the coronavirus, I saw a vision of fires burning. And when I asked the Lord for understanding, I believe he told me that the fires represented the rioting and burning that would be perpetrated by the radical left in protest of the president's re-election. It's an extension of the irrational and even frantic hatred that has been growing on the left. And now it's not hard to find statements posted on websites clearly outlining plans for extreme violence designed to bring the nation to its knees in order to force the president from office. I've seen and I've sensed that with nothing to lose politically in a second term, the president will intensify his draining of the swamp. We will see unfettered investigations and revelations of depths of corruption that will rock the nation. I prophesied that this would happen. I prophesied in 2015 that we would see depths of corruption surface in this nation that would rock us. Some of this will be political corruption, often involving money, and some of it will be sexual in nature, vile stuff. Underlying the out-of-control hatred that's been directed at Trump and the desperate attempts to convict him of crimes and to impeach him for things he was never guilty of is the desire to get him out of office before these things can be exposed. The coronavirus will fade fairly quickly as an issue once we get past the election. There may be many reasons for this, ranging from medical solutions to a toning down of the exaggerations, the false reporting of both positive tests and causes of death, and the fear-mongering. The left needs this crisis in order to blame Trump for it and paint themselves as the saviors. This dies down with the president's re-election because it's done. The strategy will have failed. The economy will recover very quickly, as it already is recovering, as things open up and as the president's economic policies take fresh root. As you vote, take note that Biden has openly stated that he will roll back the president's reforms and his tax cuts. This will mean, if he's elected, this will mean job losses as companies once more move manufacturing out of the country. Prices will rise as companies seek to cover the tax increases. And so everyone will pay. Don't believe Biden's assertion that if you make under $400,000 per year, you won't see a tax increase. You'll pay those taxes in higher costs for things you buy, and you will pay for them in inflation, and you will pay for them in job losses. The economic resurgence, even as the violence erupts, will afford us a few years of economic ease in which to prepare. And I'm speaking now to the church, to prepare for the next crisis that will inevitably come. COVID-19 has served to awaken the remnant and to ignite a fresh passion. The years to come must be a time of awakening for the people of God. To come alive, to make our voices heard. Wake up, church. To shine as light in darkness. The darkness will intensify in greater measure down the road. We must be ready to bring in a harvest of hurting souls in the midst of it, complete with signs and wonders and demonstrations of the power of God. These months of COVID-19 have been a wake-up call that has energized the remnant. We need to be certain during years of life under a favorable administration, we need to be certain to become oases of hope, love, and healing. The years to come are years to shine aggressively, to demonstrate the beauty of the Lord and display the goodness of His truth. If we will choose passion, if we will choose the foundation of God's Word, study the Scripture again, if we will choose to be holy, we will see the greatest outpouring of the Spirit of God since Pentecost. And I will confidently prophesy that in these days to come, If we will pray faithfully for our president, we will see a Donald Trump version 2 emerge in godly power, dignity, passion, and compassion.
Hello again, this is The Watchman. Please join us each week for an exciting and inspirational podcast dealing with angel encounters, heavenly visitations, near-death experiences, as well as modern-day prophecies that are relevant to us today. So tune in each week and share it with your friends. After all, they could use a little inspiration in their life, too. That's the Watchman on the Wall podcast, and now you can find us on YouTube. Now, in our last part of our podcast, we're going to hear from Dana Coverstone in his latest dream. Now, whether this dream has to do with the actual election or not, I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to let you decide that. But I do try to include Dana Coverstone's dreams with most of my podcasts. I think they're very interesting, and I'm going to let you decipher the meaning of his dream. So without further ado, here's Dana Coverstone.
Hey everybody, Pastor Dana Coverstone, Brooksville, Kentucky. Had another dream that compiled over 2 nights, August 26th and 27th. And I woke up with a little bit different understanding of this dream. I'm just going to share the dream and let everybody else pray about it, think about it, look at it. I dreamt that I saw people all over America during the daylight hours in various places. I saw people in Wall Street, suits and ties. I saw people at church. I saw people at the park. I saw people at high school games. I saw people at malls. I saw just people doing normal things. It looked more normal than before COVID, as you can imagine. Nobody was wearing masks. There were no concerns as to disease or illnesses or anything going on. People were acting like 2020 had never happened. And then suddenly a lot of those people started to look up like they'd heard something. There was no noise in the dream that I heard. I just saw people just look up suddenly and like looking around like that. And then a bunch of them, not all of them, but a bunch of them just took a deep breath like they were holding their breath, like they're about to jump into water or something. And other people had not heard anything though. And there was like people, the person talking to me just kept talking, looking at me as if they couldn't even tell I was holding my breath. They just kept talking and engaging with me. Other people, once again, were looking, those people who looked around saw something coming or heard something, felt something, sensed something, took a deep breath, were holding it. Everybody else just kept doing what they were doing. They were not even aware that people were holding their breath around them. And the people holding their breath were not straining by any means, not hurting to hold it in. They were just very calmly watching the landscape around, eyes watching, looking around while holding their breath of what was happening. And then I saw waves of water coming over the landscape, and the surrounding mountains, the boundaries of the United States of America were mountains. So take the outline from California all the way to New York. It was all, the boundary of the entire nation was all mountains. And coming over the mountains was water. Now, not like tsunami waves, not like rushing waves, just water, just steady water. And it was just brilliant blue, like ocean blue water. It wasn't dirty, it wasn't murky, it wasn't clear and transparent. It was just blue ocean water coming over slowly. And it was like the water was going to fill up the pool of the mountains around the United States of America. Now, the people who were holding their breath acted like they hadn't seen anything scary coming. The people holding their breath were not worried, were not scared, were not leery, were not panicking. Once again, they just kept remaining very, very calm. They stood there holding their breath, some of their families by their sides, holding their kids' hands. They did not run, but they stood squarely in place of where they were. The others, however, when they saw that water, they were screaming, they were panicking. They were running, but they had no place to go. And I could also see them just looking, pointing, making a fist, looking in the sky and cursing God, cursing the sky and the God that they believe lived there. And the water was coming up to their knees, and people just kept yelling and screaming. And once again, the people holding their breath were just calm and relaxed. So there were two distinct groups: those who were holding their breath, and those who hadn't even tried to hold their breath yet. One group was running and caught off guard, while the other group was very, very calm. And out of the group holding their breath walked the man that I've seen in the previous dreams, the white figure who'd always said, brace yourself, to the hospital internist or the person from the hospital, to the person who hung the bucket on the sap tap among the maple trees. He walks out and he held up 2 fingers on his right hand, and he said clearly, stay braced, but don't breathe just yet. So once again, he held up 2 fingers and he said, stay braced, but don't breathe just yet. I had this over Monday night, the 26th, and Tuesday night, last night, the 27th. Not a whole lot more in that dream, but that's what I saw. I saw the brace yourself figure. Anytime I have one of those dreams with that person saying brace yourself, I'm going to share it. I know we're seeing a lot of tumultuous stuff beginning to happen, especially in Philadelphia. We've seen in other cities. San Bernardino had a situation. All sorts of crazy things are happening in the news. And so I'm sharing this. Once again, it doesn't fit the 2020 timeline. I never saw anything with 2020. It was just everything was normal. Everything was daylight. Yet the people holding their breath were very, very calm and together. And I'm going to take it very, very easily, very quickly. Those are believers who are not panicked about what they see. But the figure said, brace yourself, but don't breathe just yet. Almost like there's more coming than we can imagine, more coming than we can see. Whether it fits the timeline, I don't know. I'm just telling you the dream that I had. That's what I saw, and I just simply wanted to share it. And for whatever it's worth, there it is. So thanks for watching.
We'll be back right after this message. Are you looking for a good quality used car but don't want to pay an arm and a leg? Well, come into Rainey Used Cars. We have the largest selection in the Southeast. Whether you want a pickup or a quality SUV from Mom, you'll find a variety of vehicles to choose from. We even finance. So come in today. You'll find a Rainey Used Cars located near you. Well, thanks again for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. Also, give us a like. We welcome any comments or suggestions you might have. We also ask you to subscribe so that you will be notified of all our future episodes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Watchman on the Wall podcast.